In defiance of mainstream norms, Perfume takes the perspective of the antagonist, yet leaves enough to the imagination to make you crave more.
Canada be damned. I'm going to the Klondike.
The Klondike is Canada.
Giorgio, you be doing just fine, brother.
I must admit, American cinema makes up the vast majority of the films I usually watch. That's probably the case with most people on this side of the pond, and that probably comes as no surprise. What is a surprise, although it shouldn't be, is the differences those foreign films capture, especially in comparison to the Hollywood formulas. 2006's Perfume, The Story of a Murderer, isn't exactly a foreign film per se, but there is enough European talent both in front of and behind the camera to meet you halfway. The film takes place in 18th century France and focuses on the unusual Jean-Baptiste Grenouille, who has an uncanny ability.
You have, it appears, a fine nose, young man, but...
My nose knows all the smells in the world. It's the best nose in Paris.
His incredible sense of smell is so superior and so fascinating to him, it makes him a social pariah even within his first year and even first days of his life.
Is it dead?
It was not that the other children hated him. They felt unnerved by him.
Growing up as an orphan, Grenouille is an outcast even among the outcast. It has a devastating impact on his social skills, which only causes Grenouille to retreat into his fascination with scent even more.
Want to buy some?
With each discovery of a new aroma, Grenouille's interest becomes ever more powerful, which fuels his fascination and transforms it into a full-blown obsession. Eventually, the intensity of which is so all-consuming, it solidifies its role in Grenouille's life.
Thousands upon thousands of odors formed an invisible gruel which he dissected into its smallest and most remote parts and pieces. The meaning and purpose of his miserable existence had a higher destiny. He would learn how to preserve scent, so that never again would he lose such sublime beauty.
Yet the smell of inanimate objects is nothing compared to the smell of beautiful women for Grenouille. Tormented by its fleeting nature and his lack of access to it, Grenouille seeks to find a way to bottle and preserve it by learning the tricks of the trade of a perfumer.
The soul of beings is their scent. You said that, Master.
Did I?
You have to teach me how to capture the smell of all things. Can you do that?
Well, naturally.
And teach me everything you know.
Sadly, although it's not necessary, Grenouille ignites a killing spree of young, beautiful women in order to process their bodies and extract their natural odor. Driven mad with intoxication, his only aim is to possess and contain their very beauty and essence by producing the world's most divine perfume anyone has ever smelled.
We have to put ourselves inside the mind of this man. Each of his victims had an especial beauty. We know he doesn't want their virginity, so it seems to me that it's their beauty itself that he wants. It's almost as if he's trying to gather something. As if his ambitions are those of a collector.
At the top of the video, I mentioned Perfume has European influences. Its director, Tom Tykwer, and its lead, Ben Whishaw, are perhaps its most obvious. But I speculate that its most intriguing one may or may not be strictly European. Perfume follows a quiet psychopath who goes around butchering young women simply to bottle them. We're not paralleling Grenouille's journey alongside a lead protagonist who we're rooting for to catch Grenouille. That would be typical, formulaic, and frankly, American. There are protagonists, but they're simply pawns for us to go through the motions. We know this, not just because we're following things from Grenouille's perspective, but because Perfume begins with the climax. Morally, we do not want all of these women to die, but we are interested to see what becomes of this long-awaited Perfume. For this to happen, we have to root for the perpetrator and see through his eyes. It's the fruit of the poison tree, and it's one which you'll never see these days coming out of the US. Only the foreign films can be this audacious. Yes, you can have a bad protagonist, but he has to do bad things for a good reason. Grenouille isn't that guy. And that begs the question, who is Grenouille? The film is roughly 2.5 hours, and yet there's much that is still a mystery about him by the end. Very rarely does he ever speak, unless he's asked something, his profession requires him to, or something regarding his obsession compels him to. There's no self-exploration, or any detour away from his single train of thought of distilling female beauty into liquid form. His sole focus is capturing this beauty, but why? On one hand, Grenouille was cursed from the get-go with a heightened sense of smell, which on this level would probably drive anyone insane. This would explain why he sought refuge in the cave devoid of smell, because his devotion to scent was not born out of passion, but compulsion. However, perhaps it was because Grenouille never experienced beauty before. Keep in mind he bounced from the orphanage to the tannery, two places which were filthy and dreadful, where nobody gave him love or respect. His mother immediately neglected him at birth, and so Grenouille never stood a chance in becoming a healthy adult. He would later become homicidal, yet his first murder was accidental, one could argue, because he lacked the social tools needed. I'm not trying to be an apologist for a serial killer of women. It's just worth pointing out that Grenouille tried on more than one occasion to achieve his goals through non-violent means. It's not acceptable. It just gives us insight into how he got where he is. He's not killing for sheer pleasure, because he's a psychopath. He can't feel pleasure. And again, we wouldn't know any of this unless we were seeing things through Grenouille's eyes. I should probably wrap things up here shortly. Perfume has much going for it, more than I've been able to unpack even in the slightest. Whether it be Ben Whishaw's minimalist yet powerful approach, or the grim aesthetics of the city versus the bright floral of the countryside, Perfume has volumes left to be discovered on your own. My favorite, although I haven't mentioned it, is how gritty and visceral certain moments are. They feel so tangible, you can feel them under your skin, or smell that something's fishy. Perfume may not stick to the North American norms, but given all it does right, albeit differently, it still comes out smelling like a rose.